In May 2026, Ethan Cole accepted a temporary position cataloging historical documents at a small museum in northern Wales. Among thousands of forgotten letters and journals, his job was to preserve old maps donated by private collectors. For Ethan, it was the perfect occupation. He enjoyed history, silence, and the mystery hidden within objects that had survived for centuries. 3 weeks after beginning his work, an unmarked wooden box arrived at the museum without a sender's name or address. Inside rested an old leather map case unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. The map itself appeared unfinished. Entire regions were left blank as though someone had abandoned their work before completing it. There were no dates, no signatures, and no indication of where it had originated. Only 4 words were written across the bottom of the parchment. Tomorrow leaves traces today. Curious, Ethan carefully placed the mysterious map inside the archives before leaving work for the evening. The following morning, however, something impossible had happened. A small village that hadn't appeared upon the map the previous day had suddenly been drawn near its northern border. The name beneath it immediately caught his attention. Grey Hollow. Ethan had never heard of such a place. After several hours of searching historical records and modern databases, he discovered something unusual. Grey Hollow did not exist. No town, village, or landmark had ever carried that name. Assuming it was nothing more than an elaborate work of fiction, he dismissed the discovery and continued working. That afternoon, however, an elderly visitor arrived unexpectedly at the museum. Upon seeing the mysterious map resting upon Ethan's desk, the man's expression immediately changed. "Where did you find that?" he quietly asked. Before Ethan could answer, the stranger softly whispered, "It shouldn't know about tomorrow yet." Confused, Ethan asked what he meant. The elderly man hesitated for several moments before replying. "The places upon that map don't exist when they first appear." "What are you talking about?" Ethan asked nervously. "Give it time," the stranger answered. "They always do." Without another word, the elderly visitor quietly left the museum. The following morning, Ethan discovered that the map had changed once again. Grey Hollow remained exactly where it had appeared before. Only now, a small symbol had been added beside its name. A black circle, and written beneath it were 5 unsettling words. "You will arrive here soon." Ethan laughed quietly at the impossible prediction. He had no intention of traveling anywhere. Yet for reasons he couldn't explain, he carefully folded the mysterious map and placed it inside his bag before returning home that evening. For the first time since discovering it, he couldn't stop wondering whether the map had already begun drawing his future. Ethan spent the entire evening staring at the mysterious map resting upon his desk. "You will arrive here soon." He couldn't explain why he had taken it home with him. Perhaps curiosity was stronger than reason. The following morning, however, something unexpected happened. The museum director informed him that he would need to travel the next day to inspect several historical documents recently discovered in a small rural community. When Ethan asked for its name, he immediately felt his blood run cold. Grey Hollow. For several moments, he simply stared in silence. According to the museum director, the village had only recently been added to modern survey records after an administrative boundary change. Few people had even heard of it before. Yet somehow, the mysterious map had known about it before anyone else. The next afternoon, Ethan reluctantly began his journey. Grey Hollow was smaller than he had imagined. Only a handful of houses surrounded an old stone church standing upon a quiet hill. Everything appeared perfectly ordinary, until he opened the map once more. It had changed again. A thin black line now extended from the village toward a nearby forest. At its end rested another unfamiliar symbol. Beneath it were 6 simple words. Not everything should be discovered. Ignoring the warning, Ethan decided to follow the path marked upon the ancient parchment. After almost 30 minutes of walking, he discovered something impossible. Hidden among the trees stood the remains of an ancient stone doorway. There were no surrounding walls, no ruins. Only the doorway remained standing alone in the forest as though it had been waiting there for centuries. Stranger still, it wasn't marked upon any modern map of the area. As Ethan approached it, he noticed an inscription carved into the stone. "Tomorrow begins here." Before he could examine it more closely, his phone suddenly lost all signal. His watch stopped moving, and for several seconds, complete silence surrounded him. Then he heard footsteps somewhere behind the trees. slow, deliberate. Yet whenever he turned around, no one was there. Without warning, another message slowly appeared upon the mysterious map. Please don't cross the doorway. For reasons he couldn't explain, Ethan decided to listen. Slowly stepping backwards, he began returning toward the village. Only then did he notice something impossible. The black line leading toward the mysterious doorway had completely disappeared from the map. In its place were 4 simple words. Tomorrow has changed again. For the first time since discovering the map, Ethan realized that it wasn't merely predicting the future. Somehow, it was protecting it, and he had begun to wonder what might have happened had he ignored its warning. Ethan left Gray Hollow before sunset, carrying the mysterious map inside his backpack. For the first time since discovering it, he had listened to its warning. And perhaps because of that, tomorrow had changed once again. The following morning, he returned to the museum expecting to find answers hidden within its archives. Instead, he found something even stranger. The wooden box that had contained the mysterious map was gone. No employee remembered seeing it. Even the museum's delivery records had disappeared. According to the official documents, the anonymous package had never arrived at all. Only Ethan remembered opening it. Late that afternoon, he unfolded the map once more. Gray Hollow was still there. The ancient doorway remained marked beside the forest. But now, another location had appeared upon the parchment. It wasn't a village or an ancient ruin. It was the museum itself. A small black circle had been drawn over the building where he worked. Beneath it were 5 simple words. Your journey ends tomorrow. For the first time, Ethan was truly afraid. The following evening, he remained alone inside the museum long after closing time. At exactly 11:17 p.m., the lights throughout the building briefly flickered before returning to normal. Then he heard footsteps coming from the archive room. Slowly opening the door, he discovered that every map inside the collection had been removed from their shelves and carefully arranged upon the floor. At their center rested the mysterious map. Only one final message had appeared upon its surface. You were never following me. Confused, Ethan continued reading. I was following you. Before he could react, every location that had appeared upon the map slowly disappeared. Gray Hollow vanished. The ancient doorway was gone. Even the museum itself faded from the ancient parchment. Only a single point remained. It marked the exact place where Ethan was standing. Then, for the final time, new words slowly appeared. There are countless tomorrows. This one belongs to you. Moments later, the map began turning to dust within his hands before disappearing completely. No one has ever seen it again. Years later, Ethan still works among ancient books and forgotten stories. He no longer searches for impossible mysteries hidden upon old parchments. There is, however, one thing he knows with absolute certainty. The mysterious map never predicted the future. It simply showed him that tomorrow is never written until we choose it ourselves. And perhaps that was always its true purpose. Some maps don't guide us toward forgotten places. They guide us toward the people we might yet become.